Hello, everyone, and welcome to Backseat Driver. Now, this episode is episode 1. Now, I did do an episode 0 where I sort of talked a bit about me and the season ahead. So go check that out if you haven't already. But for now, in this one, we'll be covering the Bahrain Grand Prix, talking through sort of what happened, maybe touching on a bit of F2 and F3 while we're at it, going through the drivers and teams, and basically just saying what I thought of them, giving them ratings out of 10, and just overall having a look at the weekend. Now, again, this is very much an informal, unscripted type thing, so I'm not really gonna have much prepared. It's very off the dome, just stuff to touch on, stuff to talk about, and yeah, I just get into it then. So let's start with, I guess, let's talk about F2 and F3 very quickly. Just touch on it really. Both interesting weekends in F2 and F3. I think, F3, we saw Gabriele Mini get pole on Friday, qualifying for F3. And, I think both races were okay. I think sprint was a little, I don't know. It was weird. I was sort of enjoying it, but also there's something missing from it. I found maybe it was because it was in the day of the tyres, a bit more management. But yeah, cruel on Gabriele Mini in the feature race, having that safety car. That took with his 5-second penalty for being in the incorrect grid spot. So yeah, that really screwed him over and sent him down to 8th, even though he was a worthy winner that day, I think. Although Bortoleto also did a great job. Not so much to say there. F2, Teo Pourchaire, man, wow. His pole lap on Friday, 7.5 tenths clear of second place. And that same gap covered 2nd to 20th, which says everything we need to know about how good that lap was. Yeah, just incredible. And, dominated the feature race. Dominated. Like, he won by 12 seconds, which is the same amount Max Verstappen won by. We'll get to that in a sec. But that's, in F2 terms, that's basically like winning by a lap. That's crazy. And the sprint race as well, like, just very good sprint race. Hauger making his way through but having no luck in the feature race classic. Hauger's actually, I think, a pretty good driver. I just think that, he did win F3, right? So he can't be bad, can he? But yeah, I think he's just had a lot of really rotten luck, especially this last year and this year too so far. So like, in this feature race, he could have done P4, P5, but maybe even podium. But yeah, no, it wasn't to be, sadly for him. But yeah, Teo Pourchaire looking very ominous. Ralph Boschung doing very well, although I think, is it 5th season in F2? So, expected, and I'm not going to be critical and say, it's 5th season, he should be doing well. But, it's one of those things where it's still impressive, but it's much more expected than, let's say, than a rookie doing well, any other, Victor Martins, poor guy. Again, 2nd place, qualifying, what do you get, P4 in the sprint? I can't remember off the top of my head, but didn't finish the race, yeah, bad luck for him. F3 champion, looking good, though, generally. Yeah. Oh, Zane Maloney, my word. 18th to 3rd in the sprint race, in the feature race. What a drive. He just held his tyres together and just overtook everyone at the end. It was really, really good. It was really good to see. Yeah, because the feature race was a bit, not dull, but a little bit dull at times. And yeah, I don't know, it wasn't very interesting in the middle, but then towards the end it started to liven up with scraps for days. It's F2 is very much a scrappy formula if you haven't watched it. Yeah. So I think the more scraps you get, sort of the better it is. And so I think having that situation where in the middle it was very management, not much going on, was unfortunate. But towards the end it livened up when the people who didn't have any tyres left literally fell off the pace completely. And those who did have tyres left and was smart about, like, not smart, but just better at managing their tyres throughout the race, the pace, they came through rapidly. We even saw Roy Nissany get into the points, which, Roy Nissany is an interesting character. Yeah, but overall, good. and obviously, you know, we're all here to talk about the F1, but I think it's important to talk about F2 and F3 because F2 and F3 are the future of F1, the drivers there. It does need to be said, like in my, so I've got, you know, my opinions on F2 and F3 generally are F2 is like the championship to the Premier League in football terms. You know, the Premier League is, if you want the best racing, you know, high quality, you know, as good as it gets, Premier League's the way to go, Formula One. But if you want pure, like in terms of competitiveness and closeness and pure entertainment value, the Championship is absolutely, like, is probably better than the Premier League in that respect because it's just chaos and brilliant chaos and everyone's so close. Anyone can do well, anyone can do badly. That's exactly what F2 is to the Premier League, like the exact same thing. F3 is like League One though, like the set below Championship, which means that it's still fun, but the quality is just about missing, I think. So I always enjoy F2 a lot more than F3 and and a bit more than F1 because F3, in my opinion, is just the quality at times can be a step too low. I think as the season progresses, you often see better racing because it's the rookies or mostly the new guys that sort of get up to speed, and they're the ones you want to look out for. And you know, some people in their second season as well, they really get up to speed. Like take Mick Schumacher, won it in his second season, took him a season and a half, became great. You know, then you see more quality, but at the start of the season, it's always a bit scrappy. The quality just is a little bit lacking, I think. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to F2 and F3 this year. There's a F2 I think is particularly stacked. Like F2 looks so good this year in terms of like quality. I think Porsche has a talent, Martins. I'm having a mind blank, but there's loads of good drivers. Liam Lawson, of course, Zane Maloney, of course, showing his talent. Christ, there are loads. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. Also, I am a little bit ill. Okay, I'm quite ill. I've taken enough, you know, I've taken some lovely Lemsips and other cold alleviating things. So I'm well enough to do this, just about. But yeah, I've had to take some time, you know, to recover, but it's okay. Yeah, we move. So now we've talked about F2, F3, I think we can probably move on to F1. Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say on the F2 and the F3. I think if you're a new fan of F1, don't get into F2 and F3 just yet. That's a big step. But, you know, down the line, I think keep an eye on it. You know, I think they've released a series Chasing the Dream, right, on YouTube for F2. I think that's a good place to start. It's like Drive to Survive, but for F2, and I think it's a lot less dramatic than Drive to Survive as well. It's an F1 produced thing, so it's a lot less manufactured than Drive to Survive tends to be. So something to look out for, I think. Yeah, so F1. So I think clear picture emerged very quickly. I mean, Aston's pace was real. On Friday on practice, we saw Aston's pace legit. They are quick, and everyone was like, and it's great to see. Really is. We'll get into the details later, but yeah, practice, it was very clear. Red Bull, Aston, very quick. Mercedes looked a bit struggly. Ferrari looked like they were maybe sandbagging a bit. Like they didn't really seem to have all that much pace. They seemed to have some, but it was very difficult to see. Long runs indicated Aston were very strong again, and Mercedes were lacking. I mean, you know, lacking in Mercedes terms, they were still like quicker than most other cars. It was just that they were slower than the top three of Aston, Ferrari, and Red Bull. I can't believe I said Aston in the top three. That's a surreal statement, isn't it? It's like 2020 when they were Racing Point, they copied Mercedes' car and got like third they should have got third in the constructors. They got fourth because they botched it basically, and also because they got a penalty. But anyway, that's not the point. So we got to qualifying, and I unfortunately, it was my friend's birthday, so I was out and about, and I wasn't able to watch it like intently, but I was watching it on my phone, and yeah, interesting, very interesting. Gasly getting his lap time deleted was unfortunate, but if he didn't get his lap time deleted, he's still out in Q1. So yeah, it's Alpine. You know, I was talking in episode 0 about I don't know what's going on with Alpine. Turns out they're just not great. Like, they weren't sandbagging. Everyone's talking about confidence, and they're talking about talking the talk, walking the walk and stuff. Like, I did talk about all that stuff, and it turns out, again, it's all talking talk, not walking walk. They just look average. They look midfield. They look very midfield, basically. They don't look, anything special. They're not like Aston Martin, right? They just look incredibly just midfield. Like, they're not broken out from the midfield. If anything, they look like they're buried further into the midfield, which is kind of not what they wanted. But there you go. It's very much their problem at this point, because they keep talking. They can't just keep talking, man, about all this stuff. It's just, they can't keep saying, oh, we're going to be competitive this year, and then just fail to deliver. Fernando Alonso must be laughing. He's probably just there like, thank God I left that team. Like, honestly, this is why I have a problem with Alpine. They always big themselves up and always underdeliver. You see other teams like being honest with themselves and being like, you know what, we've messed up, or we're not very, or playing themselves down and be like, no. But Alpine are always like, yeah, we're pretty happy, yeah. And it's just like, I don't get it. What's the attitude there? Why is that attitude there, man? Just, if you're not in a good position, if either you deluded or you genuinely think that, or you genuinely like are just really cocky. Like, I don't know. It baffles me. But anyway, Ocon got into Q3 though, so clearly there is some pace in that car, but I don't even know. There's pace in that car, but clearly not very much. Yeah, and then, we had, Nick de Vries down there. Now, my worst performer of the weekend, I said, would be Nick de Vries. And at that point, I was like, holy crap, that was a good expectation. That was a really good guess, because he was so much slower than Yuki, like, in qualifying. It was kind of crazy, actually. I can't remember what the gap was, but it was the most of any of the rookies, I think. Or maybe less than Lando to Piastri, but it was a gap. And I'm very, like, it's one of those, obviously I'm not saying that he's not good. He clearly is. He's won Formula E and F2 and stuff, but I'm not saying that. But it's just like, I think clearly either we're seeing a step up from Tsunoda there, or I mean, it's one race, right? I'm not going to make any judgments. I shouldn't make any judgments based off one race, but initial impression, right? Tsunoda's made a step forward, perhaps. And potentially de Vries has some getting up to speed to do. The AlphaTauri doesn't look that great either, which, fair enough. Was not expecting them to look as far off as they perhaps were, but in race pace they were better, but we'll get onto that. McLaren looks bad. Piastri P17 in qualifying, I think. Just bad. Just really bad. Was it P18? Might have been P18, sorry. Just bad. And I'll be honest, car looks a handful. Norris putting it into Q2, nearly getting into Q3. Well done to him. I think it's fair play to Lando for all that. That's impressive. But I think Piastri, realistically, it's his first race in a car that's not very good, probably difficult to drive. I can't really blame him again. I think both Nick de Vries and Piastri, can't blame them too hard, can we? I think it would be unfair to say they're bad after one race. I think they just had a rough weekend, really. They both just had rough weekends, really, I think, especially in qualifying. Obviously, in terms of everything else, Hulkenberg did a great qualifying. Magnussen was not so great in qualifying. Hulkenberg going to Q3 was surprising. Magnussen clearly just didn't set up the car right for qualifying, which, it is what it is. He managed, though. He managed. And what else? Williams, Sargent, and Albon. Wow, Sargent did a good job. I'm actually so impressed. He out-qualified both the other rookies. He was closest of the rookies to his teammate. Albon, I think, could have got Q3 if his front wing hadn't fallen off, really. Well, not fallen off, but it hadn't disintegrated, basically, the whole, on his Q2 lap. I genuinely believe he could have got Q3, which is really impressive. I think, again, Albon showing how good he is. And then yeah, it's just like again, who else is there? I mean, yeah, Aston looking good. Alpha, oh yeah, Alpha were very close to each other, 300s apart. My prediction of Zhou out qualifying Bottas across the season is possible. It's very close. It's already 1-0 to Bottas, I know, but the fact that it's that close this early in the season is encouraging for that. But as we saw in the race, Bottas is probably slightly better in that respect. Yeah. What else in qualifying? Aston Martin. Alonso getting ahead of the Mercedes, very impressive. Stroll getting into P8 with a broken wrist and toes, impressive. I've got to say, like, I do think that Mercedes probably could have beaten Aston in quali. I think Lewis said actually that he wasn't happy with the car. And I'm like, wow, well, you were only half a second off the Red Bulls. So, I mean, it's pretty, if you're not happy with the car and you're doing that and you're 400s off your teammate only, I feel like that's a good indication that Mercedes clearly didn't maximize qualifying as much as they could have. So, yeah. Fifth for Alonso, impressive as usual. He always gets the most out of the car, always does. Fourth, then, Ferrari looking second quickest and Red Bull easily quickest. It was just what we expected, really, in that respect. I think not much to really say. Verstappen on pole by a tenth and a bit. To be fair, Perez was within a tenth and a bit, which is good, impressive. I think. Turn into Jose Mourinho, sorry. Yeah, I think that covers all the teams, unless I've forgotten someone. I don't believe I have. Qualifying. But yes, the race. Now, I watched this in a sports bar in London, which was entertaining, to say the least. It's always fun to see different fans. Also, the atmosphere is always fun. But the only issue is I can't hear the commentary, and commentary is part of it. I feel like, you can hear the commentary, but it's like drowned out by people noise, right? So I love the commentary. Like, I mean, David Croft, of course. You wouldn't get a 3 goes Hamilton, if you didn't have that going on. So obviously, first lap, Hamilton had a great start, I think. Very impressed with his first lap, I think. I think overall with his race, I was very impressed, but we'll talk about that. So I'm going through the chronological order of the race a little bit to sort of, in rough chronological order, just to sort of give an idea of what happened and then talk about each team individually. So at the start, Hamilton gets Alonso and Russell, gets up to P5, and sort of challenging checker for P4, but doesn't really get anywhere near enough to do anything about it. Starts to fall back. Alonso gets tapped by Stroll, who dives down the inside of Russell, nearly wipes him out. If he'd wiped him out, this race would have been so different, and it'd been so, honestly, so much worse. Because the race, I think, was not brilliant, but yeah, it would have been a lot worse without him. That was risky. Yeah, so he lost space to Russell, but then he overtook Russell before later on. But yeah, Verstappen streaked away clear 2 seconds in the first lap as Leclerc tried to get past Perez, and then after that, and then Albon, great start. Sargent, great start. Both of them got really good starts. Albon got straight up into the top 10. Sargent just got on the outskirts. I think the AlphaTauris had a good start too. McLaren's had a shocker, really. That's just the whole weekend, really shocking. Just overall, Gasly was just at the back. And the start, I think, was fairly entertaining and then sort of settled down a bit. And we didn't really see much of the sort of low. I think we sort of focused very much on the Aston Mercedes battle, which was definitely the most entertaining part of this race. And I think, we saw over the course of the race, like, what we saw was, so obviously, as the laps progressed, we saw Mercedes not having much pace. We saw the Astons being, George at one point said, I've got more pace than Lewis. Yeah, that didn't happen. That pace that he said he had vanished into thin air very quickly. Because, the moment he said that, 2 laps later, Lewis pulls away by 1.5 seconds. You're like, right, sure you did, mate. And then he's overtaken by Alonso. And obviously, Lewis got the undercut, got a huge 6 seconds of 4.5 seconds, I think, his undercut ended up being, which is crazy. For 1 or 2 laps. That's powerful because it was so high tyre deg, I guess. But yeah, it was clear to see that, Aston had the edge over the course of a long stint over Mercedes. And so, we saw rounds of lap 12, 20, the sort of pit stops happened. We saw most teams going on to the hards, the second set of hards. I think Albon didn't do that. I think Albon went to second set of softs, as both the Red Bulls went to a second set of softs, but every other team went up to hards. And the Red Bulls, Perez used that to advantage to overtake Leclerc, sort of halfway through the race, overtake Leclerc and just pull away from him on the softs. But also Red Bull's tyre wear on the softs seemed to be quite good. Like, they were really good on the softs. Like, compared to every other team, they were just so much better on the softs. So they just waltzed away using that sort of strategy. I think on the, and then, we saw on the hards again, Mercedes were a lot better on the hards than they were on the softs. Lewis was impressive, I thought, on the hards, considering, I think Alonso as well. Okay, that's not gonna, obviously, I think, it's clear to see because we saw Stroll got the jump on Russell as well in the last stint. But anyway, look at that. So then really most of that race there's not much scrapping going on. I felt it was very tame for the most part. I felt like, maybe because I was in the bar, it was very slightly different, but I felt like it was a very tame race for the most part. Except for, you saw sort of midfield, I think, was very much a case of the strategies were allowing drivers to overtake. Albon maintaining his position on the softs, just holding off the cars behind. Soft, hard. We saw, Ocon, let's not talk, Ocon with his getting penalty, then not serving his penalty correctly, getting another 10 seconds, then also getting a speeding the pit lane penalty. Whoa, what a stinker. He returned retired. Piastri had a steering wheel thing and got blue screened basically by his steering wheel and had to end up retiring because his engine died. We saw all of that happening in the background, really. Norris having his pneumatic air system basically keep emptying, which basically meant that he had to keep stopping. He stopped 6 times to refill it. I have no idea why they kept him in the race at that point. I know it's experience, but it's one of those things where I think surely towards the end of the race, maybe after you've been lapped for 50 times, you sort of stop. I feel like there's no way he's going to... When the moment he goes more than a lap down, I think especially... If he goes 1 lap down, you can get saved by a safety car. But if you get more than a lap down, I think there is absolutely no chance he's getting saved by a safety car. I don't think that made sense. That didn't make sense to me. That they kept pounding him around continuously. I think they should have retired him a little earlier. And obviously Hulkenberg as well. I forgot to mention on the first lap he had some damage as well from contact with Ocon. That really put pay to his race when he slipped back. So that was in the midfield. But then I guess throughout the real story of the race throughout was the fact that Aston and Mercedes, and I think Fernando Alonso overtaking Lewis, that was a great battle. 2 really top quality wheel-to-wheel drivers. Alonso putting a move in down to turn 10. What a great move that was. I think Lewis wasn't expecting it. And I also think at the same time, Lewis probably didn't fight it more than he could have. I think Lewis wanted to hold on the position, but it was like, you know what? The moment Alonso went down his inside, he was like, okay, no, it's done. He's not going to really fight back for that. Nearly got the Ferrari as well, did Lewis, but just didn't. I think the tyre at the end just about held him back. He didn't have the traction because I think it's a rear limited circuit and Mercedes has been struggling with the balance on the rear. And he had a lot of understeer in his first stint as well, did Lewis. So that really sort of hindered, I think, overall Mercedes' race. Russell, Stroll got jumped. Then second set of pit stops we saw sort of earlier than I was expecting, actually. It was, I think, probably about 5 laps earlier than I was expecting. Sort of lap sort of 30-ish, 30 to 35. Lewis went early, stopped the undercut. I know Lewis said his tyres were good. Aston decided, Aston tried to put the overcut. Alonso basically probably dumped his battery, just pushed. Didn't get the overcut, but had 4 lap fresher tyres, was able to. That's where the battle happened. Russell got jumped by Stroll in the pits because he got undercut by a lap and wasn't able to overtake him again after that. From then on, sort of Alonso chased down Sainz and overtook Sainz. And Hamilton nearly was able to, like I said, but wasn't able to just because he was lack of traction, limited circuit, Mercedes struggling because they don't generate enough downforce to because they're just lacking downforce, which means they have more tire wear, because when you have more tire slippage, when you have less downforce, you have more tire slippage, like on the rear, for example, and then you end up having more tire wear. And obviously, as we know, Lewis is very good at managing his tire wear, but the car clearly wasn't there for him, and I think he probably maximised what he could do in the same way that Alonso maximised what he could do. But I think Alonso's performance was obviously far more impressive. All things considered, I think very impressive. Yeah, and then obviously not then, but and then lap 41, Ferrari. Leclerc blew up. Honestly, that man is going to need therapy after his time at Ferrari. Oh my God, he is being traumatized. He just looked so used to it as well. That's a sad thing. He got out, he just looked, right, we move. Because he's so used to it. It's just so normal for him to have this problem. It's tragic. It's tragic, mate. Poor guy. Really poor guy, honestly. And they replaced his controller electronics as well, and his energy store before the race as a precautionary measure. In race one! Race one! And they still had a problem. Just unreal. Honestly, just unreal. I just feel so bad for him. Anyway, that caused the VSC, which gave some cars opportunities to pit. I think Tsunoda pitted. I think Gasly. Did Gasly pit? I think Gasly pit. Yeah. That really gave them impetus onto softs, which really gave them impetus. And Red Bull thought about it, but didn't. I think it would be interesting to see if someone else did. I think Mercedes wouldn't have done, because I think it would have not worked for them purely because they weren't very good on the softs. They could have gone to mediums, but I think the mediums and hards were apparently quite close in pace, but not so much in tyre wear. So, yeah. And then obviously we had Sainz. Then Alonso overtook Sainz with the podium. Hamilton was trying to chase fourth place, couldn't get there. We saw, Tsunoda made a lovely couple of moves. He got through on Zhou and De Vries at the same time. Not the same time, but within a few corners of each other, which allowed him to chase after Albon. Didn't quite get him, but good pace shown at the end. He's taking advantage of the virtual safety car. Gasly, again, great job. Got from last to ninth. His teammate obviously didn't have the best race. Overall, just that's sort of the story of the race, really. Just mainly Aston Martin is the focus, I think. Honestly, I didn't really see too much going on down the midfield. I think pace was there, but yeah, I think that was sort of the story overall of the race. I think, I don't think there's much more to touch on in that respect. I think, you can't really fault. You can't fault Verstappen, I think, there, and Perez and all. I can't fault Red Bull at all. They had the best strategy, I think, but they also had the best pace on the tyres. So, yeah, overall, to give it a race rating, I'm going to give out. I don't know. I'm torn because it's 5 is right bang average. It's out of 10, right? So 5 is bang average, like run of the mill. Yeah, it was alright. So I'm like, the thing is, because lots of periods of it weren't very good, right? But then you've got obviously the fact that Alonso getting that podium, the context of that, Alonso getting the podium, the context of that, the fact that, obviously a battle between Lewis and Alonso and all of that, you could say, okay, that was entertaining. But was it enough to drag it above a 5? I'm gonna give it 5.5. I'll be nice. I'll give it 5.5 because I think it was very average for the most part. But I think the Alonso stuff just maybe dragged it to a point where I was like, okay, I can actually handle this. If it wasn't for there's no battle for the race lead, there was domination, there was not much going on a lot. You didn't see much of the midfield, which I think there was probably quite a lot going on, I imagine, but we just didn't see it. So overall, I have to give it a 5.5. I can't really give it higher than that because I think at that point, that's just saying it's well above, it's like a decently above average race. I just don't think it was. I think the Alonso getting the podium has probably elevated in a lot of people's minds higher than it probably should be. And that's not an insult to anyone. That's me just generally just saying, I think that everyone's so excited for Alonso. I think that it would have elevated people's opinion of the race, which I think is fair. But yeah, that's just my thought on that. So I think let's just talk about each driver individually. Well, each team, go through the driver and the team performance itself. I'm going to try separate the driver and team performance in terms of as much as I can, in terms of like, so the driver I'll talk about their individual performance, and the team I'll talk about the car on the weekend, and also their sort of performance as a team, like for pit stops or strategy, etc. So let's start with Red Bull at the very top. Going through constructors order from last year. So I've given Red Bull 10 out of 10. Have to give him 10 out of 10, I think. Didn't put a foot wrong. Fast car, great on all compounds. Smashed it. Best strategy on the grid, but they were able to do that strategy because of how good their car was. Smashed it. 10 out of 10, no question. I don't think there's much to say. They dominated and they deserve a 10 out of 10. That was a perfect weekend from start to finish from Red Bull. Perfect. Verstappen, also 10 out of 10. Listen, do I think it was a particularly astonishing weekend from him? No. But he's just very good. His standard's very high. So you kind of have to judge it based on, you can't judge it on his standards, you have to just judge it on like the overall standard. And he didn't put a foot wrong the whole weekend. He got pole in a car that was set for the race, pulled away on the first lap, didn't look back. Very Sebastian Vettel-esque, actually. Very Sebastian Vettel-esque from back in the day. I really do fear this will be a 2011 kind of season, or 2013 kind of season, but we'll see. Ominous for other teams. Very ominous. 11 seconds ahead of his teammate Perez. Really good. I'm very impressed. Like, genuinely just a very good race. And yeah, he's very good at this. He's quite good at F1, isn't he? He's all right. He's decent. So yeah, 10 out of 10. Perez, 8. I gave him an 8, I think, because yeah, he has to be. I think because he did a great job. That's the thing. Again, P2, not that far off Max, 10th and a half, 11 seconds off in the race. Over the course of a race, 0.2 of a second a lap. That's manageable. That's acceptable. I think Max was also managing, but, I think that's exactly, what you need him to do. And I think I can't give him higher because he didn't beat Max. I think that, and I can't give him high as well because I think he didn't do particularly anything that, I think the things that take away, probably his start wasn't very good. Apart from that, mostly fine. I think if I could give him a 9, but I think an 8's a fine place to put him. I think he had a good weekend, but nothing special. I think Max didn't put a foot wrong, whereas Perez, I think, obviously wasn't able to live up to that max speed and get as much out of the car as Max. Because the car is built for Max, and I think, that's also fine. I think people when I say that, I don't mean that as an insult. That's a genuine thing of like, why wouldn't you not build your car to suit your best driver? Like, why wouldn't you? But yeah, it's good to see that Checo looks a little bit closer this year, though. That's the main encouraging thing for me, is that Checo is a little bit closer to Max. And I really hope that he can sort of keep that gap or get closer, or, in certain races, like street circuits, Checo maybe can bring it to Max a bit more than he did last season. But yeah, overall, solid race from Red Bull. Can't really complain. Now, Ferrari. Yeah, 3 out of 10. 5 is bang average. And I can't give him a lower score than that because Sainz did get P4. So they weren't a disaster. Few things I think wrong. Firstly, I think the car they built was good, but it was way too high on tyre wear. They were 4th fastest on hards by the end of the stints. So, I think clearly there's some work to do. I think in that respect, I have to give him I can't give him higher than, I think the car they built is a good car. It's like a 7 out of 10 kind of thing, but 7 or 8 out of 10. But I think the tyre weight's too high. That drags it down. And then also, I think Leclerc's engine failing, the fact that they made that mistake, the fact they had to replace the control electronics and the engine still failed, drags them down. The fact that, they just didn't have much pace, I think it has to put down a third of 3. I think they just made a few mistakes. They just made some mistakes. And I think I saw someone make a list and it was 5 mistakes in the first weekend already. It's like, Fred Vasseur clearly hasn't had his impact yet. And if this is his impact, then Jesus, we're in for a long season. But yeah, I can't give him more than a 3. They didn't get their strategy very right either, because Perez was able to get past quite to Leclerc and pull away very easily. I think that was also the pace of the Red Bull more than anything. But yeah, I think has to be a 3. I'm sorry, but it wasn't good for Ferrari. I don't think they just didn't handle it well. Leclerc, I'm gonna give him a 7. I think outside of his car, I think he did he was doing very well. He got ahead of Checo at the start and did a good job in the first stint to hold him off. Obviously got overtaken in the second stint due to sort of Red Bull having a superior car and strategy and a good car. So yeah, can't really say anything there. I mean, he did a good job. I can't give him higher than Checo. And at the end of the day, I think he did very good. I think he maximized what he could have done in that car. I think that's impressive, but I just think that, I don't think it was anything special from Charles. I think he just did exactly what you expect him to do. And I think he would have got that 3rd place quite easily, I think. I think Alonso would have caught him. So, 7 out of 10. I think 7 out of 10. I could give him lower. I could give him higher, but I just don't think he did enough to. And more, did he do more than Checo? No, in my opinion. So I can't give him higher than that. Sainz, 5, very average. He was off the pace of Leclerc, and he nearly finished behind Lewis. So again, do I think that's entirely his fault? No, but I don't think his defense wasn't particularly strong against Fernando. And I think he just was a very average performance. He didn't get the most out of his car. But I also do think that, it wasn't like he did badly though. So I can't give him below average, because I think he didn't do badly at all. He was fine. That's the thing. He was just fine. He didn't do anything special. And I really like Carlos. So I'm hoping this is just one of those where it's just because it's such a tire wear heavy track, it's just a really rough one. Because of the abrasion on the circuit. But yeah, I hope it's just a rough one. Wow, I just realised I kind of made a pun there by accident. Rough abrasion. Oh yeah, I need to get outside more. Touch grass, as some people on Twitter might say. Yeah. No, okay, I'm gonna have to give Sainz 5, and also because he was also a few tenths off Charles on the first run in Q3. I think that as well. He was clearly off the pace of Charles. Yeah, I think it's all relative, right? Because you can only really compare to your teammates. So if I'm giving Charles a 7, makes sense. I'm giving Sainz a 5, I guess. Hamilton. Oh, sorry, not Hamilton. Mercedes. So I think on this one, I think the car they produced was 3rd quickest on a long stint, on the hards at least. On the softs, they were pretty bad. And the car is, I was going to say it's closer to the front. It's not really. I mean, it's closer to the sort of Ferraris, I guess. Let's just say the starting point this year is, I think, better than last year still. Just because of the fact that that they're sort of more in the mix with Ferrari and I guess now Aston. Whereas I think the main thing is that Red Bull have taken a huge step forward. I think that's probably where they maybe look further off the front, but I think realistically that's because Red Bull's taken the biggest step forward more than anything else. I mean, Aston obviously bigger, but you know what I mean, at the front anyway. So I think they did a good job on the strategy. They did the right things with Lewis. They did the right thing with George. I think there's not much they could have done. They could have not got undercut by Stroll, but I don't really see how. I don't know if George had the pace to stay ahead of Stroll. I think, I think he's within a couple of seconds for most of the race, though. I've got to say, so maybe he had a chance, maybe, but I don't know. Something's just telling me maybe not, that he didn't probably want to be able to keep Stroll behind. So yeah, I'm gonna give Merc a 5. I think the car they produced it's a good car again, but it's just I can't give them anything higher. It was very average. They didn't do anything special. They produced the car. They made a good step overnight from Friday to Saturday. They got 5th, 6th, and 7th, which wasn't actually very good. I just think which wasn't particularly brilliant, but yeah, I'm afraid it has to be a 5. I don't think I can give them higher. I think it would be very generous to give them higher than that, I think. Yeah, I feel, I don't think they were definitely not above average. So the drivers, Yeah, Russell, 5. Yeah, again, average. Got beaten by Stroll, who's broken hands, broken wrist, which I think says a lot about the car not being that quick, admittedly. But I think he just didn't do it. I think he said, I have quicker, more pace than Lewis. He did not have more pace than Lewis. I think, if anything, Lewis was probably managing. That's which is why George was able to keep up. And then George suddenly stopped being able to keep up because Lewis stopped managing and George wasn't managing before. I think we saw again today the difference between Lewis and George. I think, George can have all the qualifying pace in the world, but I think it's very clear that in the race, I think Lewis Hamilton is an asset that Mercedes need because, Russell's a 5. He did very average. I don't think he didn't manage to hold back Alonso. He got undercut by Stroll. Overall, very average from him. I can't give him below because of the fact that he didn't really do anything wrong, but I can't give him above because he didn't really do anything right either. And his teammate, I'm going to give a 7. Hamilton, I think Hamilton genuinely, I think one of his drive was pretty underappreciated. His drive was definitely underappreciated. I think that look where George is. He's behind Stroll, who we know, no offense to Stroll, but we know he's slower than George. The fact that Stroll beat George in that car with a broken wrist says a lot about how quick that Aston Martin was. I think it was legitimately second quickest to cross a race distance. So I really do think that, I think it's really clear to see that Lewis did a really good job. I think the fact that he nearly got science is really impressive. I do actually think he did I genuinely think that Lewis did do an underrated job. I think because everyone's so focused on Fernando's brilliance, but I think the car was legitimately Fernando maximized completely, whereas Lewis I think maximized mostly. I think he could have gotten science if he'd maybe been a bit more aggressive with him or something, but overall, he got qualified by George. So, I gave him 7 because he got qualified by George. Not much, admittedly, but he showed his class in the race. I think he did a great job. I really do think he did a good job. I think he showed that he is still got it. So I think 7 out of 10. Can't really give him. I would give him higher than that, but I just think that overall, I think that he did. Overall, I struggle to think that he maximized in the same way that Alonso did, or Verstappen did, or Perez managed to do. So, I think I've got to give him a 7. I'm thinking that's maybe a bit low now, but I'm going to stick with it. I think I think Lewis, we'll see. We'll see how he does over the course of the season, but I think as a start, good first lap. Yeah, let's see how he does from here. Moving on to Les Bleus. Alpine. Now, Gasly last in qualifying, Ocon Q3, so clearly something went wrong for Gasly there. Is what it is. Clearly the car has some pace. I think they built they looked like they were sandbagging. They just weren't very quick. And strategy-wise, I don't think they did anything really wrong. I think they got it right with Gasly, which drags their score up. But I think the car they produced after all the sandbagging just really let them down, and I'm really disappointed in them. I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10. Their strategy was good with Gasly, and they had some pace, had some decent pace. But I think overall, we have to look at them and be like, the car they produced, considering they didn't show us anything in testing, they looked confident. I can't give. I want to put them even lower, but I think the strategy they produced, the fact that they're able to find some pace in the race, has to put them to 4. But I do think they were below at what average. So 4 out of 10 for them. Let's start with the more eventful race. Ocon, he's getting a 2. Why is he not getting lower than a 2? Good point. I'm going to give him a 2 though. I think he wasn't a complete disaster. No. Actually, I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm downgrading him to a 1. I'm sorry. He had a stinker this race. Actually, to be fair, Alpine with a 4 as well. I guess I could take away some points for the fact that they messed up the penalty. So I'm going to actually made them downgrade them to a 3.5. So Alpine 3.5, Ocon 1. Ocon out of his spot, grid spot. A bit rookie error. That's a rookie error, that. Then he sped in the pit lane, rookie error. They didn't serve the penalty correctly, which is Alpine's fault, yes. And they changed the front wing as well. So yeah, just a disaster. Ocon just it wasn't very. It just was bad. It was just really bad. He had a great qualifying, which which is why I think I put him at 2. But I think in retrospect, I had to put him at 1. He made rookie errors. And at the end of the day, points are scored in the race, and he bottled the race on a scale just ridiculously badly. I think that was a really bad start for Esteban, and I think hopefully he can improve. But yeah, 1 out of 10. I think he was the worst performer of. I think he was the worst performer of the weekend. Yeah, he was definitely the worst performer of the weekend, sadly, for him. Which is, I got that wrong. I said Nick de Vries. But at the same time, yeah. Yeah, then Gasly, his teammate, I'm going to give 7.5. Qualifying was disappointing, which has dragged him down. But I think he got P9 in the race. Good strategy, good pace. Really showed that he's got some class about him. You may think you put him harder than Hamilton and Leclerc. Yes, because I think coming from last is impressive in a tight midfield, because it's a tight midfield this year. And obviously other cars had problems, which helped him. I think worst case he could have got P13. So I think with all the problems everyone else was having. So I think really like P9 was obviously a few places above that. But I think overall he executed, and I think he had some pace, and I think he had some fun, and I think I have to give him a higher score, because a comeback drive like that is always more impressive to me than anything else, especially in a car that's in the midfield like that. And I think they got a bit, I believe he pitted on the virtual safety car, which obviously a bit of luck, which went his way. But, I think it's encouraging signs, and I think that he has to go up there as one of the better drivers of the weekend. I think he did a good job. So I can't put him lower than it. I think 7.5 is a fair score for him. I feel like a lot of people might disagree with me on a lot of these ratings, but hey, listen, I'm sure it's okay to disagree with me. It's kind of the point. McLaren. I'm not even going to beat about the bush. 0 out of 10. And I'm not joking. I normally would put the scale 1 to 10, but they were so bad, I'm going to give them a 0. Like, I'm not even joking. I actually need to give them a 0. Yeah, no, I'm actually going to have to give them a 0. Because it was so bad on a scale I don't... Like, They haven't built a car that they've literally built a car that falls apart. They built a car that literally cannot keep itself together. That is, you know what? It is probably the single. I think that it might be up there as one of the worst weekends for a team I have ever seen. That is hyperbole, I'm sure, but that is one of the worst weekends I have ever seen from a team. Truly, truly terrible from start to finish. The car is bad. The car is, not great. Oscar got knocked out in Q1. Lando got to Q2, nearly got to Q3. But I think that's more because he's quick. Lando's just quick. And I think the car is bad. They need to get to that Baku upgrade now, because my God, the car's bad. Then in the race, Piastri had a problem. He had to do. Has an issue with the gearbox. Oh, look, then they switched the steering wheel. His steering wheel blue screened. He's out. Reliability. Oh, guess what? Lando also had reliability issues. His new gear system had to refill it 20 billion times. Oh, what a disastrous race. The worst. Honestly, 0 out of 10 is too generous. I want to give them a minus rating. In fact, I would give them a minus rating if it wasn't for the fact that I think, I'm actually, I might give them a -1. You know what? Yeah, I'm actually going to break my own system of numbering from 0 to 10 and give them a -1, because it was that bad. Truly, truly horrible. I like McLaren, but that was embarrassing. Start to finish, embarrassing. That's that rant over. It's just, I can't believe how bad it is. Jesus. Yeah. Norris, 5 out of 10. Good qualifying in the race. Just wasn't a great race for him. Not his fault, but I can't give him higher than a 5. We didn't get to see what he could do in the race. Qualifying was good enough to give him a 5, though. He did a good job in qualifying. I'm not going to give him above a 5 though, because the race is where it really matters and he couldn't really show what he could do. So 5. Oscar, 3, didn't do a good job in qualifying, 17th or 18th place. I think, yeah, can't give him above a 3 because he didn't do a very good job relative to Lando. And in the race, again, we couldn't see what he could do. So, you know what? Can't blame him on that. So it is what it is on that respect. So, you know what? Fine. But 3 out of 10. It's a harsh 3 out of 10, I think, because I think he didn't really do anything wrong apart from qualifying. But that's the one thing he had to show, and he didn't show. So 3 out of 10. Very brief on the drivers. They didn't really get opportunity to do anything. So now Alfa Romeo. I've gone with the 6. Now the reason for this is because in qualifying they were the 12th. They were 12th and 13th, which is literally 6th fastest car, which is good. And in the race, Bottas did a great job. They seemed to have a good race car. Got the strategy right. They were very smart about taking the fast lap off Gasly with Zhou, which again, good call. Very smart. The right thing to do as well. He wasn't gonna get points, so understandable. I think Zhou got a bit hung out to dry with this. So I think that overall, good point. Good situation. Yeah, I think so. That puts them above average. I think because I think the car they produced was good, and I think the whole strategic thinking about getting the extra point off Gasly. I think that was smart. So yeah, I think 6 out of 10. Tempted to give them a bit higher than that, but I think 6 is fair because I think I think really I think 6 is fair though. I think I could push it up to a 7 though. I'm going to push it up to a 7 out of 10 for Alpha. I'll be nice. Also, if you're wondering what I'm looking at my spreadsheet, which I've created for this because I want to keep a track of the course season and see who give the highest average to. I have a feeling it's going to be Verstappen and Alonso, maybe even Hamilton. Because last season, I think, if you were ranking, it'd be like Verstappen, like Norris, Alonso, Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc, somewhere in the top 5 as well. That's not any particular, just rough. Anyway. But yeah, this is because I've never kept track of my ratings before. No, I've never actually consciously done them. Okay. The drivers, Bottas 8. Great start, great pace, managed. P8, brilliant job. Fantastic. Really showed how good he reminded everyone how good he is. He's much more relaxed. I think he did a great job. Qualified above Zhou just. So 8 out of 10. I think he did a really good job. He absolutely maximized what he could do. Yeah, I'm very happy with his performance. I can't say anything. I can't really put him foot wrong. I think he did best. Definitely was best. He was the best of the rest. Really impressive. So for me, has to be an 8 out of 10. Just about higher than Gasly, because Gasly's comeback drive was impressive, but I think Bottas really, really just showed how good he is this weekend. And I think if you keep this up, Alpha will do well. Zhou, I'm giving a 5. I think, again, didn't really do anything wrong, but qualified just behind Bottas, which was impressive. Didn't do anything wrong, but just wasn't able to fight for points in the same way Bottas was. So he's definitely not below average because he was close to his qualifying and did fine. And definitely not above average because, well, didn't do really, but he also didn't do anything too much like brilliant. He just was solid, dependable, 5 out of 10. Aston Martin, now 10 out of 10. Easy. Brilliant car, brilliant tyre wear, brilliant pace, nailed the strategy. Everything was perfect. They got it bang on. They're getting a 10 alongside Red Bull. They have to. They nailed it. I'm so impressed. And I really don't think I need to justify this 10 out of 10. I really don't. Drivers, Alonso, 10 out of 10. Nailed it. Brilliant race from him. Didn't put a foot wrong. Pace, car didn't have the pace at the start. As the stints wore on, he got quicker and quicker. Overtook Hamilton. Brilliant battle with Hamilton. Overtook him in a really bold way. Overtook Sainz it was quite easily. Pulled away. Easy podium. Well, easy podium. Obviously had to rely on Leclerc tyring, but easy podium in the end. Gapped Sainz. Brilliant job. Cannot put fault in at all. 10 out of 10. Brilliant drive. Though, you know what's weird is that in the pub, everyone's cheering for Alonso's podium, like clapping, and he's weaving across the line, and it's great, but you know what? It's weird. I didn't get as excited as everyone else. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe was it because I was expecting it? Because I did predict him to come third. So I don't know. I really don't know what held me back from being excited. Something did. I don't know. I think as well. I think I still have a little bit. I'm. You know what? I think it's probably a me thing in terms of like. I think I still think of Alonso in this villain era of 2015 to 18, when he was a properly like a bit of a dick, to be honest. So I think. I think he's been a lot better the last couple of years, but I think also with even in Alpine, he's burnt bridges and stuff. So I still have a little bit of reservation about him, but I think we're seeing so much more fun from Alonso, especially in the interviews afterwards. I'm seeing so much more positivity, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm more excited now than I was at the time. It's really odd. I've gotten more excited about the fact he got a podium after the fact. And I'm happy to say, like, I clearly it's a mentality thing for me. Like, I'm still have this sort of odd mentality about him, have my reservations, but I'm not doubting his talent. By the way, this is not me criticizing his talent. His talent's up there, so one of the best. I'm just saying that, in terms of like just my excitement for him. But I've got after his race, sitting down, reflecting, look at all these things. I'm actually really happy for him, really excited for him, and this could be something really cool between Hamilton and Alonso, who are two amazing drivers. I would love to see them battle more. Oh, how amazing would it be to have Alonso, Verstappen, and Hamilton in a championship fight? That's like a dream. Stroll, 8 out of 10. You know what? I'm so impressed. I've got to say, I was wrong about him. I was saying on Twitter, if you haven't checked me out on Twitter, it's at Vans F1. But I'm so impressed. I was saying he shouldn't be racing because he was struggling to get out of the car in FP2. But you know what? I was wrong. He really impressed me. Stroll. He was quick. He was quicker than Russell. And I think that's, again, it says a lot about Aston. But at the same time, he beat Russell. He got P6 while having broken toes and broken wrist. That's so impressive. He did a great job. He qualified P8. He still got Q3 despite not having any testing as well. I have to give him such props. He did a great job. I have to say he did a great job. I'm really impressed with how Stroll did this weekend. He's not better than Alonso. He didn't do a better job than a lot of other drivers, but I think, he's up there as one of I was most impressed by, just by the fact that his grit and determination to just do well. I'm really impressed. So 8 out of 10 and an easy 8 out of 10 as well. I'll rat it. Okay. Haas. Yeah, it wasn't brilliant. Magnussen had qualifying troubles and Hülkenberg had race troubles. Both of them couldn't put it together really across the whole weekend. The car wasn't brilliant. It was better in the race than it was qualifying for Magnussen, and Hülkenberg had some problems with Ocon at the start. And then Haas made the mistake of leaving him out on a broken front wing, and that lost him a lot of pace, and then they had to change it in the second stop. So basically what that meant was that Hülkenberg was really out of contention for points. So I'm going to give him a 4 because while they weren't particularly bad, their car was fine. It was very yeah, but I think they made some mistakes. I think overall, I think they just didn't maximize what they could have gotten. I don't think they could have gotten points today, but I think they could have gotten maybe 12th and 13th, something a little bit better than what they got. And I think as well, a couple of mistakes. I think 4 out of 10 seems like that's what my instinct was telling me, so I'm sticking with it. Yeah. Magnussen, 5. Qualifying was bad from him, which dragged him down. But I think he had a good race. He got 13th. I think overall he was solid in the race. Can't really say he put a foot wrong. Can't really say he did anything too special. So 5 out of 10, middle of the road. Hülkenberg, 4 out of 10. You may be thinking, why have you put Hülkenberg out qualified Magnussen? What are you talking about? But Hülkenberg did a very good job in qualifying, which would have put him up to a 6. But I think his race was just really bad. He had a really bad race. That front wing contact at the start, clumsy. So had to put him down to that not automatically knocks a couple of points. It cost him performance the rest of the race. Didn't have much pace. They left him out on front wing, which is broken, which is obviously their fault. But at the same time, Hülkenberg could have insisted, I guess, to an extent. So I think overall, I don't think there's much between them in the end. I think 4 and 5 is probably. I think Hülkenberg's probably a little bit harsh. Magnussen might be a bit generous. So I think this is fair for now. Over the course of the season, I think we'll probably get a better average of the two. But yeah, I think this weekend I can say Hülkenberg had a better qualifying, Magnussen had a better race, and overall they were just very average as a team. AlphaTauri. Odd one, this one. Yeah, you see, because the thing is, the car they produce is it's very meh. Again, very meh. I'm gonna give it a 4. Yeah, I think they weren't, because the car this weekend wasn't brilliant. They really screwed with De Vries with not pitting on the virtual safety car. They pit Tsunoda. They tried. I know they were trying something different, but they should have pitted both. Really, if they could have. They screwed De Vries a little bit with that, and I think I have to give him a 4 in the end. I think the pace wasn't brilliant. It was better in the race than qualifying. The qualifying wasn't very good. Yeah, overall, just not great from them. I think average would be generous, so I think 4 is only fair. I think it was instinct as well. Like, if I compare them to Haas, I think they were the same thing of like, they made a couple of mistakes. They made the right call with Tsunoda, but a couple of mistakes. I think just overall, it was just very average from them. Not the best car. Just, yeah, unfortunate, but yeah, I'm gonna have to give them 4. De Vries, Tsunoda, 6 out of 10. Yeah, he did a good job. I actually got to say, he did a good job, I thought. He qualified well. He qualified relatively well, beat De Vries. He was very good. Also used that virtual safety car. And at the end of the day, you have to execute. He executed. He nearly got Albon. So overall, I'm impressed. I've got to say, I'm impressed with Tsunoda. I don't think he was anything particularly special. I don't think he was any better than a lot of other drivers, but I think he did a good job, which is why I'm giving him a 6. Because I think he did a good job, but nothing particularly special. Not enough to earn like a 7. Yeah, overall pretty happy. De Vries, 4. Did an okay job. His race was way better than his quali. His quali was bad. His quali was really quite bad. Like, it wasn't like, it was pretty, maybe Tsunoda just did very well, but his quali was not very good. That really dragged him down for me. But the race obviously matters, and he did a good job in the race. He obviously got screwed by the virtual safety car, not pitting. But at the end of the day, he didn't do as well. He was doing a decent job. He would have finished behind Tsunoda anyway without the virtual safety car. So overall, I can't say he did better than Tsunoda. I think overall, with qualifying in mind, 4 out of 10 is only fair. Okay, Williams. Now, this is an interesting one. Because it's like, Williams as a car, clearly they're the worst car. But did they maximize what they could have done? Absolutely, yes. As a team, they did a very good job of maximizing their result because they got the right strategy going. They had the exact right ideas in terms of they got the right strategy. They just managed to keep pace. I've got to say, I'm giving Williams an 8. They got the strategy right. Their car was quicker than they expected and I think everyone else expected. I'm just impressed. Overall, Williams did a good job. Like, they genuinely did a good job. They deserve that point. I'm very happy for them and I'm very impressed. And I have to give them an 8 because I think they were, to me, the 3rd best constructor in execution. And the car they produced may be the worst, which, could drag them down even further. But I know I said, I'm trying to make based not on expectations, but on like a general average. But I think I can't just not give them an 8. They just impressed. They did really good. And I think that's also comes down to the drivers, Albon and Sargent. I think Albon deserved an 8. And so does Sargent. All round 8s for Williams because Albon, my God, did he do well. He got a great start and stayed there. He had good pace. He was quicker than the guys behind him, except for when Tsunoda stopped for softs, but managed to hold them off. He did a great job. He qualified. He could have got to Q3 if his front wing hadn't disintegrated. I think he did a great job. I think Albon was really impressive. I was so impressed with Albon this weekend. Showing how good he is. I was really impressed. 8 out of 10, easy. And Sargent as well. 8 out of 10. Because he deserves it. He was closest to the rookies. Yes, he went out in Q1, but he was still good. And then he got a great start. Got up to, he finished 12th. What a great drive from him. He didn't put a foot wrong the whole race. He was quick. His pace was good. He was finished the best of the rookies in probably the slowest car. So impressive. Really, really showed that he belongs in Formula 1. Thank God. Thank God that thank God that he showed his, because I think people were doubting him. There was that graphic early in the weekend that showed, 4th and 3rd and F2, 7th and F3, both of them, 4th and F2, and now he's here. And I'm like, and now it's just like, why? I saw someone say, why is he in the sport? Like, bro, like, there's no context applied to that. There's no context applied. And the context is, like, he did do very well. And like, I think he showed he's good, and I'm so glad that he can show it. And I think 8 out of 10 is deserved. I think Albon did a better job over the weekend, sure, but considering he's a rookie, I'm gonna give him an 8 because of the fact that I think that's really impressive from him. Yeah. And so there you go. There you have it. I have ranked all the drivers and teams. And as you can tell, I'm very impressed with some, not impressed with others. I think you'll find I'm probably a bit skewed. I think if you look at my average for all of these, I think it could be it probably isn't it probably isn't very, very low. I can imagine it. Yeah, my average, I just calculated, was 6.2. So it's above average. So surely if everyone's doing above average, that's not, doesn't make sense. But listen, I think that's a natural thing. I'll try my best to keep myself from doing that. But yeah. Anyway, that's my race review. I'm looking forward to Saudi Arabia now. Jeddah, that should be fun. High downforce. Not so much tyre wear, I don't think. So I'm thinking Mercedes lacking a bit of downforce, but tyre wear won't be as much of a problem for them. So maybe Ferrari. I think Aston will be second quickest there. Good amount of downforce. I think Red Bull. I think the order will be Red Bull, Aston, Ferrari, and Mercedes in Jeddah. So let's see. But yeah, that's about does it. Thank you guys for watching and listening, if you are. And thanks. Hopefully this continues. Hopefully I can continue this, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it. If any of you who are watching, anyway. Overall very happy with the fact that Formula 1's back. And let me know if you agreed with anything I've said, or if you disagreed with any of my ratings, etc. I think it's just so good to have Formula 1 back, and I'm looking forward to just talking about it even more. Okay, well, on that note, thank you guys very much for listening and watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.